It's not Nebraska. It's not Kansas. So far this year, we've been reasonably lucky. Only one day with tornado reports. That was the 10th.
All right, some new video into us now showing you some of the flooding that areas around Charlotte has seen all morning and afternoon long. Roads here are underwater, and less than an hour ago, North Carolina transportation officials told us that they have to close lanes of both Interstate 85 and Interstate 77 at times in parts of Charlotte due to the flooding. We've already seen that. We know I-85 has had several lanes closed and in fact some stalled cars because of how deep the water is. Now the rain has ended in Charlotte and is winding down in Raleigh. The worst of the weather pushing to the east now near New Bern and Morehead City down to Wilmington, even the Grand Strand. Let's get the latest on Ada. Ada is less of a concern. It's more the moisture that has pumped into the mid-Atlantic and across the Carolinas that's causing more issues. The core is really just void of much activity at all and really dimming down on the winds overall too, not seeing a lot of gusts over tropical storm force anymore. All right, let's zoom out and there we go. We do have some of these streamers that are coming through. One just happens to be right over parts of Miami and southern Broward County. Remember, this area saw over a 1.5 feet of rain just earlier this week, and we can show you a flash flood warning in Miami-Dade and also Broward counties. There is a live look at South Beach, and it's raining. Not a lot of people at the beach. The problem is there's still standing water in numerous neighborhoods. Just too much rain has swollen numerous waterways, and now here we go, a heavy downpour that's slow moving, and it's going to cause some more issues. And that flash flood warning, by the way, remains in effect until 8:45 tonight. That's how waterlogged this area of the country is. Also, flash flooding very likely here from northern South Carolina, right on back through eastern parts of North Carolina. The I-95 corridor, look at some of these colors popping up there. They're estimated to be anywhere from 5 to 8 inches of rain. That's how much we've already picked up, and more rain still ongoing. Nearly half the state, guys, is under flash flood warnings right now from Charlotte east, also starting to approach some of the coastal areas. Zooming in, the rain's over in Charlotte, but remember, that flash flood warning remains in effect for another few minutes. We'll see if they extend it. They may not, and these things might expire, especially across the western half of the Piedmont, right up against the base of the foothills. Meanwhile, steady showers and continuing flash flood warnings here for Chatham, Lee, and Moore counties, as well there in Wake. That includes you in Raleigh. And then we're working our way farther south. Very heavy rain right now in Wilmington. A few thunderstorms. There's that instability, and slow-moving storms could mean some ponding and flash flooding here towards the coast of the Carolinas, Mark.
And yet, the tropical season is not done. And so, we're talking about perfecting your Greek alphabet knowledge. Go back to, say, your fraternity or sorority days. So we went through Eta. Here comes Theta. And I think Iota is waiting in the wings as well. 65-mile-per-hour tropical storm Theta is all the way in the eastern Atlantic and moving east, farther away from the U.S., closer back towards the Mediterranean interests, until it's not, and it turns north. Notice how cool the waters get, at least comparatively, and with some increased wind shear, I don't think this one's going to make it all the way through the weekend. So that is some good news with regard to tropical interests. on that part of the Atlantic. How about a little bit closer to home? Swirl of clouds and disturbed weather moving through the Caribbean now with a 90% chance of being called a depression or a storm over the next couple of days. It's been looking more and more organized. The satellite-derived winds has found a closed area of low pressure. We'll see if the National Hurricane Center says that that is enough yet to call this a depression. It is near some of the persistent thunderstorm activity. We'll see. It's close. It might be close, but no cigar just yet to call this a depression, but I think we'll get there sooner rather than later. With the kind of broad flow across the northern islands of the Caribbean, that includes Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands, you're seeing on-again, off-again showers and storms, and flash flood watches are thus in place. A little bit of dry air out ahead of this swirl, so these are the clouds that we've been watching. A little bit drier in the short term, but very little wind shear, if any at all, and so all of the models on this westward track keep this developing. That's why the 5-day development area looks like it does. And some bad news for Honduras and Nicaragua, the higher terrain, I should say, Guatemala into Belize. Remember, because this is the same area that saw all that heavy rain because of Eta. Now potentially what is Iota coming in with many areas that see the same type of setup, a foot to a foot and a half, maybe even 2 feet of rain. That would be yet another humanitarian disaster here.
Yeah, huge problems there in Central America. All right, well, the Masters, the practice rounds are over and the Masters certainly underway, but not without a delay. Officials suspended round 1 play for much of the morning due to rain in Augusta, Georgia, as organizers moved the golf championship from April to November due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The forecast for the remainder of the time actually looks amazing. Clear and dry for the most part, cooling temperatures with overnight lows in the 50s.
Geico makes the claims process.
All that light illuminating the flooding until there wasn't. What a mess last night as Tropical Storm Eta came through. Flooding, storm surge, heavy rain. We'll show you what's left from Eta right now and where the worst of the rain has moved to for the rest of the day.
And we just got an update on a rescue operation at a North Carolina campground. More information coming up on this, as dangerous flooding is another issue Eta has triggered. Buildings floating away here in North Carolina. Flood emergencies also triggered. That's what we've been dealing with here. And now word that flooding has proven deadly at a campground north of Charlotte. So we'll continue to give you more information on this situation and across the state as we're still under numerous flash flood warnings at this hour mark.
Yeah, why are we seeing all this rain into the mid-Atlantic? A couple of different reasons. Partially because of Eta and the circulation from that. Partially because of a front that's moving through the eastern seaboard. Where those meet up, the rainfall is at its worst. So the very heavy rains will continue across eastern North Carolina, southern Virginia for the rest of the day, with onshore flow in southern Carolina, southern South Carolina as well.
And we just got an update on a rescue operation at a North Carolina campground. Crews now saying that they've rescued 31 people when floodwaters inundated the campground in Alexander County. Unfortunately, the sheriff's office says one person is dead and 4 more still missing right now. And of course, we're going to be monitoring the latest situation here coming out of Alexander County and the ongoing flash flood situation. We also want to take you live now to Virginia Beach, Virginia, where it is a raw November day. You're looking at temperatures in the 60s, still raining, steady rains have soaked parts of the tidewater. Horrible beach day and very humid. All right, let's show you what we're looking at right now. Flooding ongoing here across the Carolinas. Look at our radar estimated 24-hour rainfall totals. When you see the yellows, oranges, and especially those reds, I mean, even here too, we got to watch out, say eastern Maryland, parts of southern Delaware, getting out towards Ocean City and the Delmarva. That's a spot that's been hard hit. And then that area stretching all the way down into the Carolinas, that's where we've had numerous issues. Now, it's not necessarily the overall rainfall totals, it's the duration the rain has fallen. That's what's causing so many issues, especially there in the parts of North Carolina. Notice we had heavy rainfall totals in the Delmarva, but we don't have any ongoing flash flood warnings. Different situation, though, across the Carolinas because of the rate the rain was falling. And the fact that you have a lot of topography there in the Piedmont, especially central and western North Carolina, and that is all draining down into these river basins. When you look at Charlotte's hour-by-hour rainfall totals. You go back 8 hours ago, that's when the rain started, but look at that. You had a 2-hour window where each hour we were nearing 2 inches or more per hour. So that brought your 12-hour total to over 4.5 inches, making it our wettest November day on record here in Charlotte. That beats the old record back in 1985 by nearly 1.5 inches. So impressive stats here, especially given so late in the season. So there we go. Flash flood warning remains in effect. This has now been extended until 6 p.m. You may be wondering, well, why the rain is well east out towards Pinehurst and Rockingham. Well, the rivers are still so flooded. So even though the rain's done, it takes a while for all that water to recede. So there's still numerous road closures. We last check with the NC DOT, North Carolina Department of Transportation, they were saying nearly 250 roads closed or impassable here across the state of North Carolina. That number may be going up. Here in Wake County, as well as Lee and Moore and Chatham, this includes Cary and Durham, as well as Raleigh. You're under that flash flood warning. And then getting out towards the coast, we've got an extended flash flood warning here through 3:45 p.m. Expect this to probably be extended. Heaviest rain now pulling across the beaches here from Jacksonville, Morehead City, south towards Wilmington. Myrtle Beach, you're just missed. It's all to your north, really. We've had some light showers, no flooding there. And then out towards Cape Hatteras, Cape Lookout, you're seeing some of those heavier downpours. And this will be a spot to watch for thunderstorms and a potential here for ponding and flooding on the roads. Meanwhile, expecting more flooding later today, Mark.
Yeah, we're not done, right? All that heavy rain is moving towards the east, plus a little bit of an enhancement right along the coastline of the Carolinas because of what's left from Eta coming through. So it's really the front. It's really the front is the kicker here with that wave of low pressure along it. But the tropics being nearby does not help. Let's put it that way. And so the chances reasonably high that we'll still have flash flood warnings, and goodness gracious, just about all of the eastern half of North Carolina is already under those flood warnings. So again, here's that front with the wave of low pressure. That wave of low pressure is traveling this way, so going towards North Carolina. We've got our remnant tropical system also hugging the coast, moving north. Gosh, between the elevation going up as you go inland, that front coming in, that's a lifting mechanism. You put all that together, and the chances are pretty good that the rain will continue for the rest of the day. And that's what the modeling is suggesting here. This is one of our high resolution models. We've got the front basically right in here. We've got our low from the tropics going this way, and it all meets up right at the coastal plain. So look at how heavy the rain could be over the next several hours if you're right along the immediate coast. That's the biggest area of concern. Still 7, 8 o'clock, still going right at the beaches. Finally, by 9, 10 o'clock, I think we get just far enough east that we can say goodbye to the worst of the rains for anyone on land. Deep sea fishermen got to watch out for this mess tonight. You never really like, Chris, seeing a front and an old tropical low meeting up right over some of the deep sea fishing paths coming off the Outer Banks. Fishermen can get in trouble that way as well.
Yeah, it's those unexpected situations. Just when you think the coast is clear, it's not quite done just yet. Well, the moisture spreads northward. That's why we're showing you New York City right now. A few water droplets, looks like. We've been in and out of some light showers. Temperatures here a little cooler, 50 degrees, kind of cloudy, humid, and we've got this unsettled pattern, really juicy atmosphere, okay? So this is essentially the same tropical air mass we're facing farther south. However, we're not going to deal with that same flash flood potential. The heaviest rain will be to our east, well offshore, but will graze us with on and off showers, especially overnight, early tomorrow morning, heading into lunchtime. Temperatures not really moving a whole lot, staying in the upper 40s, lower 50s. Look at this plume of moisture that's feeding in from Eta, being pulled up along our boundary, which is here, bringing in all that dry air. That dry air clearing us now in Georgia, also there in the Carolinas. It's been such a humid past several days here. We're finally getting a refreshing air mass. It'll bring you cooler temperatures, also bring you much drier weather for so many of us on the eastern seaboard. So welcome retreat. However, the good news is the heaviest rain staying offshore never really came and impacted us here along I-95. But we do have some light showers there towards the tri-state region, northern Jersey, getting into the Hudson River Valley. That will come through Manhattan and the 5 boroughs, out towards Long Island, getting into parts of southern Connecticut. Steadier showers maybe back towards the Potomac and Chesapeake Bay, but otherwise light showers. Not going to amount to a whole lot, just kind of gray type of Friday. By the time we head towards the afternoon, we get that last surge that could come through by lunchtime, and then clearing skies later in the day for Washington, D.C. Should be a great evening commute. Same in Philadelphia, New York City. Approaching dinner time, it'll be dark at this point. Sunset's early these days, and we'll have a much cooler night ahead. It's just in time for the weekend, Mark.
Yeah, hopefully we can keep some of the nice weather for the weekend and finally say goodbye to the tropics, because it was really a rough night, a really rainy night across much of northern Florida. Tropical storm Ada pushed across the Sunshine State. Here's a little piece of what it felt like for you out there. This is the Clearwater area just outside Tampa. It feels tropical, right? When you have those sheets of rain going by, the palm fronds swinging in the breeze, it feels like a tropical squall for sure. This was Tropical Storm Ada moving through Clearwater, and it's never just the rain. It's also what's left behind. The combination of rain and wind give you some tree debris and also a little bit of surge. This is right across that Courtney Campbell Causeway that connects Clearwater to Tampa. Posted speed limit is 60. You don't want to hit that going 60 miles per hour. All those tree branches there on the road. So the DOT had to come out and clear things through. So speaking of the Tampa Bay region, south of Clearwater, St. Pete Beach felt Ada's sting as well. And Mike Seidel was there to update us on the damage. Mike.
Here at St. Pete Beach in Florida, where they dealt with Ada last night. And unfortunately, the surge came in at the same time the tide came in. And one homeowner that realizes that it is scary when that happens is Jody McLean here at the beach house, the Yellow House. And tell us what happened and how quickly it happened.
It happened so fast. I mean, we've been in this house since 2011, and it's a flood-prone area already. So we're used to having the tidal surge and all that sort of thing, but we're used to having more time to prepare. And this was such an unassuming storm that we weren't preparing for it, you know?
Right,
and
right.
The surge happened faster than I've ever seen it. There was at one point, we're just sitting here watching a movie, I don't know, maybe 9 o'clock, and the water was out by the road. Half hour later, it was all the way up to the house. So it came in that fast. And once it crossed the threshold into the house, it just started pouring in. So we panicked, grabbed the dog and ran next door and had no time to prepare for it.
And there's the water line, and as you mentioned, over the threshold. Had the surge come in at low tide, you wouldn't have had this issue. But
I know.
Timing is everything.
It was literally the perfect storm.
Why don't we go inside and
Okay.
show everybody what it looks like. Now, you mentioned you came back this morning and the water had drained out itself.
Correct.
You didn't have to pump it or squeak it
No,
out.
it took care of itself. It drained itself out over the night, but we're just leaving it here until the insurance adjuster has a chance to look at it. And we'll get the flood remediation team in here to do their thing. So
And
just
there's the
take it
water
one
line
step
on the
at a time.
couch.
I'll leave
Looks
it
like
under the
about
carpet under you.
four or
Yeah.
5 inches. The carpet's soaking wet.
Oh, yeah.
The leather couch, I guess that's going to be okay.
Who
Yeah,
knows?
and
We'll
back
see.
here, the water came right on through the house.
The water
through the
covered
kitchen.
everything. It was a good 6 inches throughout the whole house, it looks like.
So you did come back in here before you left for the night to see how deep the water was?
Ooh. No, we're just looking at the water lines.
Oh,
Throughout
okay,
the
got
house,
it, got it, got it.
Uh,
And all the way
backyard
back
was
through the
underwater.
backyard and then into the back
Yeah,
bedroom.
this is our back bedroom, and closets, everything, clothes. Yeah, we didn't have time. Grabbed a couple things that meant something to us and ran next door. Hope for the best.
Well, you guys were okay, and
Yeah,
you've got
exactly.
insurance,
Oh, sure.
and
Yeah,
so
we
you
have to
can
have
get
flood
this.
insurance,
You'll be back in here in no time.
yeah. I hope so.
Yeah, sure. I know you will.
No, thank you.
And you got a great attitude, you and your sister.
One day at a time.
And you live at the beach, and you have
The
to
price
deal
you
with
pay
some
for living in
issues.
paradise, exactly.
Yeah,
We're a
you've
half
got
mile from the Gulf of
fires in
Mexico.
California,
I know.
and so
something?
it's the
Well-
price you pay for paradise.
That's right.
Okay, well, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for checking us out.
Jody McLean here at St. Pete Beach. As the water has receded, but unfortunately the cleanup continues.
Thanks for that report, Mike. Ada causing headaches there, not just in St. Pete Beach, but all across the west coast of Florida, South Florida too. In fact, places like Fort Lauderdale still waiting for high water to recede after Ada dumped heavy rain over that part of the state. That rain started last weekend and continued into Monday during round 1 of Ada in Florida. All that moisture flooded roadways and neighborhoods with water up to the homes and places. Ada's second round stung Florida's west coast. Storm surge brought damaging floods. This is actually what it looked like late last night near the Gulfport Casino, where roads and businesses flooded, leaving a big mess to clean up today. And we're also watching for potential flooding in Charleston, South Carolina. You're looking live right now. We've got a steady burst of rain, gray clouds. I mean, can't even make out the clouds. Just a stagnant gray here, 77 degrees. The problem is the timing couldn't be worse. We are expecting king tides to peak this weekend. We had a significant round last month, and now here we go again, another peak of king tides. They're the highest high tides of the year. They happen with the alignment of the Earth, Moon, and the Sun. You get it towards new moon and full moon, and that's where we're headed for this weekend. So notice the wind speeds are elevated right now. The peak will be this weekend. These won't be here. A lot of the core of Eta and the remnants of our front will pull way offshore. What that will do is bring us some lighter winds offshore heading into the weekend. Okay, manageable. That will help minimize some of the king tides. Still going to be minor flooding at times, especially in a city like Charleston. However, our wind speeds start to pick up and they become a little bit more onshore by Saturday and certainly on Sunday. We see that also across eastern Florida. So Miami up towards the Space Coast, Brevard County getting into Jacksonville, the Golden Isles. We'll have to watch for those higher than normal tides. Jacksonville, one to watch, maybe Friday's high tide in the morning and then going into the weekend, Saturday and Sunday as well. All right, Mark, we're ready for the tropics to be over with, yet the Greek alphabet still in play for so many.
That Greek alphabet is long, and let's hope we don't get all the way through it. Gosh, it has been quite the year so far, record-breaking by a lot of measures, and Puerto Rico has seen your fair share of storms come through. A lot of them on the weaker side and kind of getting organized past the islands, and let's hope that trend continues. Here's another one, another swirl. Remember, here's Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands, so this one is already past the islands because it's moving off to the west. This is an investigation area. It's getting more and more organized. Over the past couple of days, this was really an open wave with no west wind at all. I think that's starting to change. You could make the argument that we have a closed area of low pressure now. It's near the shower and thunderstorm activity, not completely out of the realm of possibility that this is a depression already. Right? It's got that look to it. So at any time, the National Hurricane Center may need to pull the trigger on that, or they could wait a couple more days just to see if this, devolves a little bit more and opens right back up. It's not a done deal just yet as the showers and some storms go through the Puerto Rico area and the U.S. Virgin Islands. That's why the flash flood watches are up through the rest of the day. Ahead of this swirl, very dry air. The models go into an area with very low shear, and so with warm water, low shear, you have to expect that this is going to start to develop, and that's why the 5-day development area looks the way it does. And this is bad news for our friends in Central America because the modeling has been consistent that Nicaragua and Honduras, remember, this was the exact area that Eta came through, kind of like this, with crazy rains over that border of Nicaragua and Honduras and up through Guatemala and Belize. We could see that again with this storm. Both major global models are suggesting extremely heavy rain. This would be another humanitarian disaster here. Really, really damaging stuff. Of course, we're following some of the aftermath from Eta like this. This was St. Petersburg as the storm approached, the waves smacking against the seawall.
At the home.
Hurricane season doesn't stop for a pandemic, and neither do we. Get the information you need to stay safe every day, right here on the Weather Channel.
So Eta coming and going out of Tampa Bay. Unfortunately, not so lucky other parts of the country. Eta is still having a big impact on parts of the southeast with massive amounts of flooding this morning, like the city of Charlotte. But as we look behind us, the cleanup already underway here from the Public Works here in Tampa. And, we got a chance to talk to the mayor earlier this morning, and this is what she had to say about getting on it as soon as Eta departed late last night.
Well, the plan for the day, as soon as the sun came up, We were out there assessing. Our first responders have been out all night long, blocking off any roadways that needed blocking because of the storm surge. Also, any tree limbs that are down. We had very, very minor electrical outlets that were fixed, outages that were fixed immediately. And so we're assessing. We've got our teams on the ground, and we're going to get everything cleaned back up. And around noon, you won't even know a storm came through.
So once again, Tampa Bay definitely dealing with a tropical system, one that kind of shut it down for a while from the airport yesterday afternoon all the way, if you will, to Bayshore Boulevard during the overnight hours last night and into this morning before the water has receded. Remember this, a lot of these impacts have been from tropical storms. We haven't really been tested here in the Tampa Bay area for dozens and dozens and dozens of years. Should we get a Cat 1, 2, or 3 hurricane here, it's a whole different ballgame. Either way, that's count our blessings here that the way 2020 has gone in other areas, at least we didn't have to deal with a landfalling hurricane here in Tampa. Reporting from Tampa Bay, I'm meteorologist Jim Cantori.
Thank you, Jim. That's obviously true, how a tropical storm brought that kind of storm surge and mess. But it's not the only area. That front going through the mid-Atlantic had that tropical feed interacting with it. And look at this. Around Maryland, the amount of water that came through was very impressive. The rivers rose, came up and over some of the roadways here. Really was a mess. I can't believe these vehicles are risking driving into this. They are utility workers. They know where the water lines are and all, but still, no thanks. I would not be behind that driver's seat. I would have stopped and gone another way. No thanks. I do not want that insurance claim to write. And I'm sure you don't either, and yet there are so many communities that are still dealing with this very thing right now. Look how much water there is still falling across eastern North Carolina. The Charlotte area was the worst this morning. It hasn't been raining for about 3 hours, maybe even a little bit more than that now, and yet the flood warnings have been extended till 6 o'clock here. That's because of lingering water on the roadways from earlier today's rain. It was almost 8 hours ago where the worst of the rain was cranking through. 4.62 inches, shattering records for the day, for the November month, actually, a rainiest day for the month of November by about 1.5 inches. It just absolutely obliterated that record. The rain is moving away from Raleigh. Flash flood warnings continue there nonetheless. Rain is still ongoing around Fayetteville. Flash flood warning until 4:30. And towards the coast, this rain is going to last into tonight. And so we'll probably need extensions on some of these flood warnings as well. Chris.
Well, meanwhile, snow squalls leading to a major accident here in the upper Midwest. We're talking about outside of the Twin Cities, this along I-94. This is near the town of Monticello. The highway is still closed following a multi-vehicle accident where you can see several trucks that happened to caught fire here. This was issued during a snow squall warning at the time. A very narrow band of intense snow came through the Twin Cities. It's exiting now, the snow winding down. Get ready for a cold night, guys. Wait till you see these temperatures tomorrow morning. Near the Mall of America and the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport, about 1.5 inches upwards to 2 inches. A little bit more just to the west near Buffalo where that accident happened, and then some higher totals potentially near 3 inches down towards St. Peter and also the south side of the Twin Cities. So when we talk about accidents, the most accident cases happen when we have snow events of less than 2 inches. That was the exact situation that played out here in Minneapolis. So those bigger snowfall totals, you get much less accidents, probably because people aren't driving as much and they're taking the storm more seriously. So don't be caught off guard, even though it wasn't a major snowmaker, certainly enough to cause numerous road issues here across the Twin Cities. Temperatures are in the 20s, and look at the blue roads, even pinks. Those are equivalent to slick and covered, snow covered at this time. And don't see much improvement in that when you look at this forecast mark. Temperatures, skies clearing out, meaning temperatures are going to plummet down into the teens for a chilly start here on Friday morning.
And that northern tier has been quite active. The Seattle area had a bit of a break today as we go to the Pacific Northwest. Let's face it, that's where all the storms start as they make their way across the country. You guys are usually the first ones to deal with a piece of that. And this week ahead is going to be a good example of that. Storm after storm after storm on the way. Take a look at the amount of precip that we're waiting for this week. With lower elevation rains that could go 3 to 5, maybe even 5 to 8 inches. And then significant snows in the mountains as well. Look at this conveyor belt. This is the jet stream. This is that tropical express coming down from from near the Hawaiian Islands and pointed right at the Pacific Northwest. So it was a break today. It's not lasting. A big push of rain comes in, higher elevation snows, that moves inland. Another one comes in Saturday morning and then into Sunday. By Monday morning, there's another surge. You get the idea. It's going to be a little bit unsettled here in the Pacific Northwest. This is good news for the firefight. Bad news if you had outdoor plans. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. We are watching the scene outside of Alexander County in North Carolina. Ongoing rescue operations. There's a campground here, and flooding rains came through, inundating the area. Gosh, so much water. Look behind the building. Look at how fast that water is flowing. That water came through these buildings, all the way up almost to the roof line of that beige building behind in the background, right? There's the foreground building that's kind of bluish, that tan one in the background. Breaking news, sad news to report, one person killed here in the high water. At least 4 people are still missing. So I think it's 2 now, 2 people killed. So the numbers are still climbing here. At least 2 people killed and several still missing. Obviously a massive operation underway right now. Emergency crews are looking for them in Alexander County. That's northwest of Charlotte. And so much of eastern North Carolina is still underwater.
We've got 4 boat crews here now, and they will continuously go out. Water's receding some. Yeah. And our objective here is to figure out if we can find somebody and make sure the scene's safe and make sure these buildings are taken care of.
So is it just the proximity to the creek that you think led to this severe flooding, or what do you think, sir?
The South Yankton River runs behind us here, so I would assume with the rain that this area had, overflowed its banks and came into the campground.
Okay.
So a long way to go, right? And we talked to North Carolina's Department of Transportation earlier. They said 250 roads and climbing were closed because of flooding. Look how high up that water is on that bridge. It's over the bridge and people are still driving through it. Oh, no thanks. Conditions are just terrible. This was earlier today in the Charlotte area. You can understand why so many roads were closed when you have that much water in places that water just isn't usually found. Earlier, parts of I-77, the major highway through the city, was shut down because of high water. That highway's back opened up, but of course, as I mentioned, many roads have not opened up. Let's take a look at the amount of water that we've seen. This is an estimate on the Doppler radar of the past 24 hours. And right there, here's the Charlotte area up through Raleigh. Goodness gracious, widespread 3 to 5 plus. Some areas well over 8, if not 12 inches of rain estimated by the Doppler radar system. The worst of it now is in the eastern third of the state. But the flood warnings last a long time after the rain because of water still over the roads. The rivers are high, the grounds are saturated. There is still very dangerous weather to deal with. So that's why the flood warning was actually extended in the Charlotte area. Was only until 3, now until 6. They do not want people out in the roads driving around. The Raleigh area also improving sky conditions, right? The rain is done in Raleigh, not coming back. But the flood warning continues for at least an hour. We'll see if there's any extensions needed on that. Also near the coast where the rain will continue the longest, flood warnings are still ongoing there, and we'll see if those need to be extended into this evening. Chris, it's going to be a long, long day still across eastern North Carolina.
Yeah, the rain just doesn't want to stop there, especially in the eastern half of the state. Well, it's all thanks to Ada. Let's talk about Ada. Still a tropical storm right now, just to the north and east of Jacksonville. Doesn't look very healthy, and it is weakening. It's being infiltrated by dry air. Essentially, the center pretty much devoid of activity. However, we got a few of those tail end streamers still coming through central and also South Florida. They do have some bursts of heavy rainfall with them. Otherwise, just a breezy day here across northern Florida, the Swanee River Valley, also back towards the Georgia Isles. Winds are anywhere from 15 to 30 miles per hour, so below tropical storm force strength. Heaviest rain, though, well to the north, well removed from the center, and that's what we've been seeing there in the Carolinas. The track of this, keeping this for the most part offshore, staying likely a tropical storm, but becoming more subtropical likely as it combines with our front and pulls east of the United States, Mark.
Gosh, this storm had quite the history. We were following this before Halloween, and still talking about it now. Eventually came past Florida to the south, then came to Florida last night. Again, in Sarasota last night, police had to close the island to non-residents as the worst of the rain came through. And you can understand why. They didn't want a lot of people out and about having a good time trying to do a hurricane party or anything when that came through. So 2 rounds, right? One through South Florida, one into North Florida as this thing did the loop-de-loop going through Central America and then back up into the Gulf. Pretty incredible. Look at South Florida here. The amount of rain that we had outside Miami, some areas got 16 inches of rain in just one night. Okay, so now we can look at Miami. Rain from 6 inches, but Miami this year, 82 plus, 7th wettest year on record, and the year is not done yet. Fort Lauderdale, just up the road, you're already at 3rd place and knocking on the door, really, of 2nd place. Hopefully we don't get all the way to 1, but again, we got another month and a half still to go. And then with that second round coming up through the Bay Area, the Tampa Bay, over 3 feet, almost 4 feet of surge. That was enough to do some damage as well. You know, we continue to follow some really heavy rain across eastern North Carolina. A destructive night and early morning, and we're not quite done yet. This is tied to a couple of different things, right? We've got a front that would have been coming through this area anyway with a wave of low pressure. Some of this heavy rain would have occurred no matter what. However, it's not happening on its own. We also have what's left from Ada approaching from the south and adding moisture into the area. So the added lift from the front and that tropical moisture has led to this. Widespread flood warnings ongoing across central and eastern North Carolina in particular, and heavy rain through much of the coastal southeast and the mid-Atlantic. Charlotte, flood warnings until 6 o'clock. You're behind the rain now, but the flood concerns, the water over the roads is still out there. Similarly, Raleigh still under a flash flood warning even as the rain has shut off. We'll watch areas towards the coast with heavy rain continuing.
Well, with rising water leading to rescues, it's important to know what to do if floodwater comes to you and sweeps you away. Meteorologist Jim Cantori went to the experts to learn all the right moves.
While working with Jim today, the first thing we taught him is what to do if I accidentally fall in.
The first thing I had to do was float on my back with my feet out of the water. You never want to get your feet caught in the rock. Once I'm comfortable enough there, I would roll over and just swim aggressively towards shore.
Get out, Jim. That's it.
You have to stay calm because you want all your movements to be purposeful. If you're out there thrashing, splashing about, you're not accomplishing anything.
You're gonna live today, Jim.
One of the scenarios we did with Jim today as well is we put him on a rock. He's stranded on an object. It could have been a car, it could have been a house.
I had to holler and let the rescuer know where I was.
Throw me the rope, throw me the rope.
I was in a position where I wasn't gonna lunge for it.
Great shot.
And then I put the rope over my shoulder.
And then he ferried across, swimming with assistance of the rescuer.
Good job, buddy.
The third scenario we had Jim in today is called a live bait rescue. It's a rescuer on a rope tether.
We know we see rescuers downstream. We have to get down to them.
We went about a quarter of a mile down the river. And it's amazing how fast you get down that river.
All right, guys, I'm about to be rescued here. They're going to be pulling me from the water.
Look at me. I've got you. I've got you. Let me hold on to you.
I've got you.
Survivors always need to follow the instructions of the rescuer. Once the rescuer has their hands on them, they have to let us be in charge.
The number one thing that I walked away from today is that you absolutely have to work with this river. I can tell you one thing, after going through this today, I think I could get through a flash flood.
Well, along with flooding rain, we've seen other threats this week, like this one. Now, shortly after a couple parks their car in California Sunday, boom, you see that? Lightning hits. They dashed out of the car after it happened and headed to a friend's apartment. You can see this again. They were picking up the friend to head out to breakfast. Fortunately, they had no serious injuries. However, they did say their ears were ringing a lot after the lightning hit. And you saw more than lightning in Oregon. You got to check this out. Over the sky in this neighborhood in St. Helens on Tuesday. Do you see that? You're going to see what appears to be funnels and potentially a tornado there above the house in the distance. Minor damage reported as a confirmed EF0 tornado struck here earlier this week. And just look at what winds did in Washington State. A mobile home flipped off a truck that was transporting the mobile home along Interstate 82. Officials believe winds gusted through Badger Canyon definitely played a role in the incident. It took several hours to clear the highway and reopen it fully to traffic. Mark?
Gosh, so crazy when the winds can knock over those, that was a house, but high-profile vehicles as well, just how strong they get. The West certainly struggling with wild winds, but not just the West. We've had other areas, including the Midwest, with some big storms as of late. Look at what happened in Wisconsin on Tuesday. That is a windy event. Goodness gracious, the rain's going sideways. You can barely tell what the camera's looking at here, right? That made it very tough to see across portions of the state. Storms dumping very heavy rain here. Along with the wind, you had lightning flashing there. Also, would not want to be caught unaware. Would not want to be caught outside during something like that blasting through. That was with a front that also approached Chicago. Look at this. The waves, the sheets of rain blowing down the streets of Chicago. There were sirens sounded at the time. You were under a tornado watch through the afternoon and evening hours of Tuesday, and those winds knocked out power to more than 10,000 customers in the Chicagoland metro area. We had funnels in Missouri on Tuesday. Look at that, getting up above, and if you look out in the distance, several little appendages. I don't know if I'd call any of those funnels, but there were definitely some lowering, right? Some ominous lowering from the clouds there. No, I wouldn't want to see that, that's for sure. This time of year is kind of the second season of severe weather. It's not the same as spring, but it's a little rebound from where we are in September. October and November are slightly more active months. And if you're going to have severe weather, it is the Dixie Alley, right? The southeast states that wind up seeing that chance of kind of an enhancement. You can see that here with the actual number of November tornadoes that we've seen over time. Dixie Alley really sticks out as the active spots. It's not Nebraska, it's not Kansas. So far this year, we've been reasonably lucky. Only one day with tornado reports. That was the 10th.
All right, some more new video showing the incredible flooding here in North Carolina. You can even see that some buildings are partially submerged. Flash flood warnings now extended in the area until 6 p.m. tonight. It takes a while, even though the rain has ended in some of these locations, it takes a while for that water to really recede. Tough day across North Carolina, also Florida, but this is all tied into Ada regardless, even though it's less of a wind event now, more just a heavy rainfall threat. That's what we're seeing, especially across central and eastern North Carolina. That likelihood of flash flooding remaining high in Raleigh, Fayetteville as that rain pushes farther east, improving conditions back towards the west, but still rivers running very high. When you look at those estimated rainfall totals just in the last 24 hours, and by the way, a lot of this falling in really just 12 hours or so. I mean, you see those oranges, even some hints of red in there, and that's equivalent to over a 6 to 8 inch rainfall range. All right, so widespread, especially along that I-95 corridor. Back towards Charlotte, our totals weren't as high. However, the flooding was significant, and it's mostly due to the fact that a lot of that fell at such a heavy rainfall rate in such a short period of time. So it's not necessarily the overall totals, it's the rate at which that rain falls that really causes the most issues. And that is why, I mean, look at nearly half the state under flash flood warnings currently. Some are expiring here to the east, and you can see that bowingness of those storms now pulling offshore, still impacting us here around Curry Beach, Carolina Beach, Wrightsville Beach, and there around Wilmington. Charlotte, the rain is done. However, Mecklenburg County, including all of Charlotte and the metro area, you are still currently under that flash flood warning through 6 p.m. tonight. Still seeing these flash flood warnings, including Greensboro, Winston-Salem, getting back towards Raleigh-Durham, Cary, and then also to your south and west from there. All right, so there's a look at that high-resolution feature radar showing you the bulk of the activity now starting to pull off the shore. Still going to hang on to heavy rains, though, and the potential here for some flooding and ponding along the beaches of North Carolina. Wilmington, that includes you back towards Hatteras, Cape Lookout, and the Outer Banks, and then everything kind of ending from there. Still a little cloudy with a brief shower, but improving conditions certainly overnight tonight into the day tomorrow. All right, so Ada's done. Newest advisories came in, Mark, for Ada and Theta, and the potential of maybe more activity in the tropics.
Yeah, I think we'll get to Iota sooner rather than later from an area in the Caribbean. Let's start with the named storm, Tropical Storm Theta. As Chris mentioned, newest advisory is in. Not looking all that healthy, and yet still 65-mile-per-hour winds around this thing. I don't think it's going to last too much longer. It's moving east for now into cooler waters, then moving north into even colder waters still. That said, I think some piece of this will still survive, and so we'll have a little bit going towards Portugal over time. Not much left from wind, but some extra moisture headed that way. Let's go to the Caribbean. This is the area, the next area of concern, a little bit closer to home. 90% chance of development within the next couple of days here. Could be any time, really. National Hurricane Center didn't pull the trigger this afternoon, but they could whenever they want, right? The satellite is suggesting we have a closed area of low pressure now. It's been with these persistent shower and thunderstorm activities, maybe not centered up in the kind of the middle of that rotation. That could be one reason why they're waiting to pull the trigger here. You can see that rotation on the radars, and then as we get closer to the Puerto Rico area and the U.S. Virgin Islands, you can see that the showers and storms are going over their neck of the woods as well. Flash flood watches continue through the rest of the day in those areas. This disturbed weather zone is moving this way into some drier air. I think it'll be able to fend that off. It's moving into an area with very low shear. This is a look at the models, the tropical models, and they all almost exclusively go towards that border of Honduras and Nicaragua. That's the 5-day development area, and that's a problem because that's the same area that Ada came through with feet of rain, and we could do it again. Look at the European model output. Even more focused on the GFS towards the Honduras coastline and the higher elevation there. But you see that white color? That is 2 to 3 feet of rain in the forecast. Chris, 2 to 3 feet of rain on top of what just happened about a week ago. That would just be a disaster across portions of Central America.
Well, the practice rounds are over, and the Masters is underway, but not without a delay. Officials suspended round one play for much of the morning due to the heavy rain we've had in Augusta, Georgia. Organizers moved the golf championship from April to November. Remember this? All thanks to the COVID-19 pandemic. Still beautiful conditions. Fall foliage peaking here across the Savannah River Valley, including here around Augusta. Improving conditions. Today wasn't the best. It was hot. It was humid. It was wet to start, cloudy to finish. While increasing sunshine tomorrow with temperatures getting a little cooler, 70s by the weekend. Incredible forecast here for the Masters and the championship this weekend. The only difference is sunset is earlier than in April, so we're only looking at 10 hours of daylight.
Oh my gosh, you hear that? The camera shook there as all the power went out. That was a transformer popping in the distance, knocking out the power. One of many areas, really, as Ada came ashore in Florida. 34,000 customers lost power last night into this morning as Ada charged across the state. But power outages are really just one of the impacts from this storm.
All right, some new video into us here of a water rescue in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Rescue crews waded through floodwaters from Ada to pull this driver to safety. You can see how high the water got there. I mean, nearing the handles of this sedan in the car. This was a scene all over parts of North Carolina today.
And so we got that tropical moisture tap from Ada that's now exiting the northeast Florida coast. we also had a front come through with its own wave of low pressure. These two features meeting up in the coastal Carolinas, keeping that heavy rain ongoing. And that means more flood warnings towards that coastal plain as we go through the rest of the day. Chris, we are not quite done yet with this flood threat.
No, we're not. In fact, breaking news, we just got an update on a rescue operation at a North Carolina campground where crews saying they've rescued 31 people when floodwaters inundated the campground in Alexander County. Unfortunately, the sheriff's office says one person is dead and 4 more still missing at the moment right now. We'll continue to monitor the situation as we get updates here from Alexander County. We also want to take you live to Virginia Beach, Virginia. You are also under that flood threat. Heavy rain continues. You know, the Delmarva areas from eastern Virginia into eastern Maryland and southern Delaware has seen quite a bit of flooding and heavy rainfall. And that is something that we'll continue to watch for the time being, at least for the next few hours. Let's show you the past 24 hours, some of the radar estimated totals coming in. Notice a huge swath of yellow kind of painted and splotched here from the Piedmont, north of Charlotte, back towards Raleigh-Durham. You got several areas that have seen 5 to nearly 8 inches of rain. That's what that orange that you're looking at represents. Notice that batch there towards Ocean City, Maryland, also towards southern Delaware and the Chesapeake Bay. All right, so here's where we go. We are seeing that back edge finally starting to clear out. Several of these flash flood warnings, by the way, have started to expire, so things are improving. We are seeing some of that water receding. Charlotte, that warning remains in effect for you through 6 p.m. local time. Heavier rains back towards southern South Carolina, too, so you can see the rain is done. We're not going to get any more wet weather, thankfully. We're just waiting for the waters to go down here around Mecklenburg County. Improving conditions also to the north of Greensboro, Winston-Salem. Your warnings, your flash flood warnings have now expired. But when we look at a city like Charlotte, many cities in North Carolina, same deal. Here's the issue. You go back 9 hours ago, that's when we saw about an inch per hour rainfall rate in 1 hour. What you're looking at is the 1 hour rainfall totals with each of these bars. Between 8 and 7 hours ago, in a 2-hour stretch, we were nearing 2 inch per hour rainfall rates for 2 hours. That brought us close to 4 inches, and that was what caused our overall totals to be so high, but also that's what caused such significant flash flooding. And all of the creeks, like Briar Creek in uptown Charlotte, spilling over its banks and happened so quickly, and that's why we had so many issues. All right, so wettest November day by a long shot here in Charlotte with over 4.5 inches of rain. The rain is done, so we're not going to see any more, but boy, is it wet. And we continue with those flash flood warnings. This one until 4:15. That includes you around Raleigh and Cary, as well as Durham and down there along I-73. Heaviest rain easily here to the east, starting to clear out the coast, but steady rains from Kinston over to New Bern, down to Morehead City, Jacksonville, also there around Wilmington, where we're going to stay in the threat here for the potential for flash flooding for the next few hours, Mark.
Yeah, luckily it does not seem as bad as it was 12 to 24 hours ago. So we're probably not going to see the extent of the flooding in eastern North Carolina. There could still be some more flood warnings coming up. That's why this map looks the way it does. As issued earlier by the Weather Prediction Center, a likelihood of flood warnings and flash flooding pretty likely when they were already issued and happening. But notice, you know, it doesn't all go all the way to the coastline. I think it's going to be heavier rain there, but you don't have the terrain. You don't have the elevation coming into play the same way as you do over interior sections of the Carolinas, and that is going to help out. Things are going to be able to run their way back to the Atlantic Ocean just a little bit easier. It is a bit of a complicated weather picture here. We have both our front and our wave of low pressure because of that. We also have what's left of Ada coming up. That's throwing extra moisture from the tropics, from the tropical Atlantic in towards that coastal plain, which is then getting lifted by that front that is approaching. So those two features are working together, and it's why things are as soggy as they are near the coast. But that's about it. And again, the coast is more accustomed to that heavier rain as opposed to the interior sections. Sandier soils can soak up more of that water, and it can run off into the ocean that much easier. So a couple more hours to go. By 8 or 9 o'clock, we can finally start to say goodbye to that heavy rainfall threat. And maybe most importantly, we could say goodbye to Ada. Ada is going to finally be moving away after following this thing since the end of October. It's been weeks that we've been tracking this, and it's finally going to leave. So with all that being said, we've started to cross off the areas of 3 to 5 inches of rain. There could still be 1 to 2, maybe pockets of 2 to 3 across eastern portions of North Carolina in particular, but not nearly as widespread a flood event on the way as what we had last night. So that is the good news, Chris.
And the rain spreads northward. We're seeing a cloudy day. There we go. Some showers coming in to us here around Manhattan. Live look at New York City, 48 degrees. Wind's not too strong, but boy, a raw day here if you're catching the ferry or trying to get from point A to point B or coming home from work and school. Thankfully, not going to deal with the flash flooding that we saw in North Carolina. We're not going to see that type of rainfall, but we will stay cloudy and we'll stay moist. We've got some showers, especially I think late tonight into the morning hours tomorrow. So maybe a tough commute trying to get to work, staying dry. We're going to have a hard time doing so. It won't necessarily be heavy, but it'll be wet. So showers possibly, at times maybe a moderate rain. All right, there we go. You can see that whole tropical moisture source from Ada, or what's dying and becoming more of a remnant issue, is being pulled up along our front all the way into New England. All right, southern New England is where the wet weather is. The bulk of the activity, though, is well offshore. It's not going to be moving in. It stays off the coast. So that will keep us away from any flash flood potential. But we are going to see some showers and maybe heavier downpours, maybe briefly coming through from time to time through the next 24 hours. DC, you'll be the first to clear things out. I think overnight tonight, the rain really pushes to your east. That front's going to help clear you through. Maybe a sprinkle or two by the morning, but by lunchtime, there we go with clearing skies. Maybe a whole little batch of rain coming through by lunchtime here around New York City, also Atlantic City, Philadelphia, getting into the tri-state region, Hudson River Valley, working into Connecticut, Boston, some light showers, and then same thing here for Portland and Augusta, Maine, working into Bangor and areas around Acadia National Park. Clearing skies, though, this is tomorrow night, heading into your weekend, and it should make for a very nice weekend, at least for parts of New England, especially southern parts of the state. Not looking at a whole lot of rainfall, but some areas may end up with an inch before all is said and done, Mark.
Gosh, it's finally we could say goodbye to this, though. And you know what? It's none too soon for those of you that have been dealing with this across North Florida. It was a rough and rainy night across much of North Florida as Ada pushed across the Sunshine State. Look at this. This is the squally weather coming through the Clearwater area, where just sheets of rain were howling down the streets. That didn't even factor in the storm surge around Tampa Bay, which was impressive. Several reports of 3 to 4 feet of storm surge. Anything above 3 feet is considered a life-threatening surge. Now, that combination of storm surge, wind, knocking off some of the tree branches, and lots of heavy rain left this behind. This is the causeway that connects Clearwater to Tampa, and they had to get out there.
And one homeowner that realizes that it is scary.
Since 2011, and it's a flood-prone area already, so we're used to having the tidal surge and all that sort of thing, but we're used to having more time to prepare. And this was such an unassuming storm that we weren't preparing for it, you know.
Right,
and
right.
The surge happened faster than I've ever seen it. There was at one point we're just sitting here watching a movie, I don't know, maybe 9 o'clock, and the water was out by the road. Half hour later, it was all the way up to the house. So it came in that fast. And once it crossed the threshold into the house, it just started pouring in. So we panicked, grabbed the dog, and ran next door, and had no time to prepare for it.
And there's the water line, and as you mentioned, over the threshold. Had the surge come in at low tide, you wouldn't have had this issue. But
I know.
Timing is everything.
It was literally the perfect storm.
Why don't we go inside and show everybody what it looks like? Now, you mentioned you came back this morning and the water had drained out itself.
Correct.
You didn't have to pump it or squeak it out.
No, it took care of itself. It drained itself out over the night, but we're leaving it here until the insurance adjuster has a chance to look at it. And we'll get the flood remediation team in here to do their thing. So
And there's a water line on the couch. Looks like about 4 or 5 inches. The carpet's soaking wet.
Oh, yeah.
The leather couch, I guess that's going to be okay.
Who knows?
And back here, the water came right on through the house.
The water
through
covered
the kitchen.
everything. It was a good 6 inches throughout the whole house, it looks like.
So you did come back in here before you left for the night to see how deep the water was?
Ooh. No, we're just looking at the water lines.
Oh, okay, got it. And all the way back through the backyard and then into the back bedroom.
This is our back bedroom, that and closets, everything, clothes. Yeah, we didn't have time. Just grabbed a couple things that meant something to us and ran next door. Hope for the best.
Well, you guys are okay, and
yeah,
you've got insurance.
Oh, sure.
And
yeah,
so you
we have to
can
have
get
flood
this.
insurance,
You'll be back in here in no time.
I hope so.
Yeah, sure. I know you will.
No, thank you.
And you got a great attitude, you and your sister.
One day at a time.
And you know, you live at the beach, and you have to deal with some issues.
The price you pay for living in paradise, exactly.
Yeah, you know,
we're
you've
half
got
a mile from the Gulf of
fires in
Mexico.
California,
I know.
and so
Something.
it's the price you pay for paradise.
That's right.
Okay, well, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for checking us out.
Jody McLean here at St. Pete Beach. As the water has receded, but unfortunately the cleanup continues.
All right, thanks for that update and that tour of that woman's home in St. Pete Beach. Eta caused headaches not just there, but across the state of Florida. Places like Fort Lauderdale still waiting for high water to recede after Eta dumped heavy rain over that part of the state. Rain started over the weekend and continued into early Monday during round 1 of Eta in Florida. Now all that moisture flooded roadways and neighborhoods with water up to homes in places. Eta's second round stung Florida's west coast, where storm surge brought damaging floods. This is what it looked like last night near the Gulfport Casino. Roads and businesses flooded, leaving a big mess to clean up today. And we're also watching for the potential here of flooding in Charleston, South Carolina. Wet day, still holding on to the rain right now, so getting around could be a little slick. 74 degrees, humid, muggy. It's a full tropical air mass. On top of this, we got the peak of the king tides expected this weekend. So let's talk about some of the concerns that we have. Now, we had an event similar in October, and then this one in November will be similar. So king tides are the highest high tides of the year, and they typically occur about 6 to 8 times. We know how serious this can be, though, in a community like Charleston. Low-lying areas, many streets downtown start to flood as that saltwater flooding, sunny day flooding is typically what it's called. And it happens when you get new or full moon, essentially the alignment of the earth, moon, and sun. The other problem, these can be intensified when you get onshore winds. Right now we've got onshore flow because of Eta, but we're not at the peak of the king tides. A lot of this wind starts to rapidly pull away. We drop our wind speeds and we get more of an offshore push heading into Friday. Okay, so starting off the weekend, we may have a lower king tide than what you typically see there, at least in Charleston. But by Sunday, there are some changes. We get a return of some of this wind, and it gets enhanced there towards the Carolinas, the Georgia coast. Areas around Savannah will have to watch out for the onshore flow in Jacksonville, and also there across central and southern Florida. And then those winds turning more onshore here towards the Carolinas by Sunday, meaning higher king tides are possible, Mark, by the time we head into the latter half of the weekend.
Yeah, just one more coastal impact that we're following, right? It's starting to get old, especially since we've gone through Eta, and yet that's not it for this tropical year. We can look towards Puerto Rico right now and say, oh, maybe this is Iota forming, right? Because Theta is already in the eastern Atlantic, and yet we think there will be more on the way. Let's start out close to home. This is a disturbed area of weather that has a 90% chance of development within the next 5 days. Hurricane Hunter scheduled sometime this weekend. You could make the argument that it might need to be sooner than that. We'll see if any changes to that flight path are issued by the hurricane hunters and NOAA. Here's the deal, 90% chance of development here, a decent amount of spin from persistent thunderstorms, and those thunderstorms are right on top of the best spin. It seems to be a closed low at this point. Area of low pressure goes all the way around, maybe not centered right with the best thunderstorm action, right off to the side. I think the center of the low-level swirl might be closer to here, so maybe that's a mid-level swirl that we're seeing on the satellite or with the wind product. But that said, we're getting there. It's starting to get that look, right? In that broad flow around it, Puerto Rico has seen on-again, off-again showers, as has the U.S. Virgin Islands. Outside chance of flooding across this area because of that. But this swirl zone is headed into an area, a little bit of dry air. Maybe that's a bit of a headwind, but I think it'll fight that off. Very low shear, and so the forecast brings this back towards, say, Honduras and Nicaragua, areas that were just slammed because of Eta, and the forecast here is just devastating. The European model as well as the USGFS model both suggesting gargantuan amounts of rain on the way, adding to the humanitarian disaster there in Central America. Meanwhile, we're still watching new images coming in from Eta. Listen to the waves bashing the boats in the marina in Pinellas County.
Only Dish has
season doesn't stop for a pandemic, and neither do we. Get the information you need to stay safe every day, right here on the Weather Channel.
No electricity, that's right. No internet.
Sundeck Inn owner Daniel Clarkston said that he will have plenty to repair in the coming days, as flooding up to 2 feet took its toll on 3 of his hotel rooms.
Obviously, we're gonna dry everything out. We're gonna make sure that there's no mold, that everything is sanitary.
With the tourist season upon the area, along with a slow economic year to begin with, Ada's destruction couldn't have come at a worse time for Clarkston.
It is what it is. We got to deal with it. We got to make the business back up and running for our guests and give them the best possible vacation experience.
However, Ada's impact wasn't just felt by the local community, as a tourist traveling from Minnesota described a morning she will never forget.
Once we woke up this morning, we looked at all of our windows, and there's just been huge waves.
With their hotel's power out, a vacation in paradise has become far from it.
Power has been out for a while, so we're looking for some restaurants or places open to get some electricity here so we can keep the news on.
So crucial to keep that mode of communication open as long as you can. And it's going to be tough to get that communication into areas that flooded in North Carolina. Some new video right now from Charlotte. Look, I mean, the parks are often built in the lowest areas, but if it were just the parkland that flooded, it'd be one thing, but it is not. It is a far cry from that. We had so much water across Charlotte, across really the eastern 2/3 of North Carolina and portions of South Carolina and Virginia as well. And we got some more new video for you as well. Speaking of South Carolina, I want to show you this. Rising water here and damage from the extremely heavy rain and washing away the banks of this road a bit, right? You're right on the edges. Gosh, scary. And then, you know, totally washed out too. I only saw the bank, and look at that. The road is gone. I saw this part, I'm like, oh, look, that edge of the road isn't doing so well. And you pan over and you're like, what road? It gone. Completely washed out. That is a private drive, but still that means somebody's cut off and has a lot of repair to do. This has been just a crazy setup, a meeting of just the worst, you know, grouping of conditions that you could see. A strong front moving into a warmer than average air mass with tropical moisture thrown in because of the approaching Ada and a wave of low pressure along that front as well. It all came together to give us the flooding. Now around the Charlotte area, notice some good news outside of Charlotte. Winston-Salem, Greensboro, Asheboro, Rockingham, no longer in flood warnings, but Charlotte still is till 6 because of lingering high water over the paved over areas of the city. Outside of Raleigh now, along I-95, Franklin, Johnson, and Nash still flash flood warnings, and that could continue as we work our way through the eastern side of North Carolina. Chris, it looks a lot better right now than it did earlier today, so hopefully we can slowly put this day behind us.
Yeah, and those warnings starting to expire. Meanwhile, the upper Midwest, a whole different situation where snow squalls leading to this major accident on I-94, this near the town of Monticello. The highway still closed following a multi-vehicle accident. You can see several trucks that caught fire here. And we've also got some new video into us here. This from the Twin Cities. Take a look at what it looked like as some of the heaviest snow fell. I mean, this is what you call a whiteout. Literally, you look out your window and you can barely see across the street, right? Visibility really down and that snow piling up. Now, it didn't last too long, about an hour and a half or so, but it put down between 2 and 3 inches in some cases. All right, so let's get a look at the overall totals. And again, impressive totals for a quick moving band of snow. Widespread 1 to 3 inches. We had a little bit higher totals here to our west and also to the south towards Heidelberg and Lakeville, just south of the airport and the Mall of America, where we had about 1 to 2 inches. All right, and it's those small snow events that typically cause the most traffic accidents. This study done by the Wisconsin Department of Transportation found a huge spike when you have a trace to 2-inch snow events rather than the bigger snow totals that you see, say, a half foot or more. Probably because a lot more people stay home when the bigger storms come and they take these lighter events less likely. How quickly, though, that sun comes out, that will help at least improve things a little bit. But notice temperatures, though, mid-20s and dropping. The forecast really going to get cold with a lot of the roads still slick and snow-covered. Mark, we're talking well below freezing. In fact, teens overnight and into tomorrow morning.
Ooh, that is a different air mass for sure behind that front. Meanwhile, the storm pattern is actually pointed at the Pacific Northwest. Seattle, you had a break today. Don't get used to it. The clouds are coming back in. The rain is going to be more persistent than not, I'd say, over the next week or so. Take a look at some of this precipitation that we've got on the way. Heavy rain in the lower elevations, heavy snow for interior and higher elevations of the Pacific Northwest. Thanks to this pattern, look at the the rotation around that feature in the central Gulf. High pressure here, but that's our storm path pointed right at the Pacific Northwest. We're already seeing a piece of that coming in. This is just the beginning. Look at the next 7 days here. Thursday, we have a little pulse come in, but it's really the next impulse comes in tomorrow. That goes inland Friday into Saturday. Next one waiting in the wings Saturday morning into Sunday morning. That moves through. Monday morning, there's another piece of this. You get the idea? It is going to be very stormy. Yep, we're not done. Here comes the next piece Tuesday into Wednesday. We'll be right back.
You can't fake the good.
Look at this. Ongoing rescue operations continuing at a campground in North Carolina. Floods inundated the area today. So far, at least 31 people were rescued. Breaking now, word that 2 people have died in the high water. Several are still missing, and a massive operation is underway right now with emergency crews looking for them in Alexander County, that is northwest of Charlotte, where flood warnings continue. I will say that there were other injuries and potential fatalities across other portions of North Carolina, some even in this county. So it has been a tough, tough day. And how about this? This is some new video coming in from the Winston-Salem area. Water rose, surrounded an apartment complex, so the high water crews were going basically door to door here, putting the residents in the boat in the little ferry and getting them onto higher ground. You know, if there's a medical emergency in there and the rest of the emergency crews can't get to you, that is a big problem. Plus, you don't know if structurally those apartments were in trouble with that much water going through. So many people are dealing with this today and have been. Really, the Southeast has been so soggy overall over the past couple of months that you get an event like this with this much rain as quickly as it fell. You know, the Charlotte area saw 4.6 inches of rain in about 2 hours. That's crazy heavy rain. That is like you can't hear because the rain's hitting your roof so hard type rainfall. The good news, we've seen a big improvement to the amount of flood warnings that are out there. The bad news is if you're in the Outer Banks or eastern North Carolina, the rain is still ongoing there. But Charlotte, it's dry now. The roads are still wet. The roads are still water covered because of high rivers across the region. That's why this has been extended till 6 o'clock. Flash flood warnings in Charlotte. It hasn't been raining there for about 5 hours now. So don't be fooled. Don't look out your window and say, clear skies, we're good. That's not true. That's why the flood warnings are up. Similarly, Raleigh is dry, no more flood warning there. Still keeping this flood warning for a little bit more here in just east of town, although that might be dropped any second now. And the eastern side of North Carolina still raining, Chris, so we're not done there.
Yes, when we step out a little bit and take a look at Tropical Storm Eta, still a tropical storm, but really looking less and less like a tropical storm and more just like a front. That moisture got pulled up, becoming more subtropical. You can see all of the action well offset from the center, which is off the coast of Savannah, and pretty dry right now in northern Florida. Sunshine actually peeking out and not too breezy. There's where the path takes this, and again, keeping it away from the Carolina coast. However, the rain well to the north and off towards the east, well offshore from Florida. We will have some lingering streamer bands coming through central and east Florida. That's what we're seeing to the south of Jacksonville, but overall pretty quiet. Wind-wise, between 15 and 20 miles per hour. Here's the issues that we're having here in Miami. All right, let's go to meteorologist Mike Seidel.
This is Boca Ciega Bay at St. Pete Beach, and I'm with Kevin Webb, the homeowner. And Kevin, you got some damage from Tropical Storm Eta last night.
Yeah, we got a lot of storm surge, a lot of waves, a lot of 4 and 5 feet waves. My whole yard was about a foot underwater at one point. But
and you got your lawn chair out there.
Yeah, I got to dig my lawn chair out of the water here in a little bit. One, I had 2. I can't find the other one, so one's gone completely. So.
How long have you lived here?
2.5 years.
So this is the worst you've seen?
Yes, yes it is.
Let's walk around front. You can tell us what you were concerned about. Go ahead, lead the way.
Sorry. Okay.
And we'll head out to the front.
All right.
He's got some nice cars and some new motorcycles. You can see the debris up here in your yard.
Yeah, the debris here, this grass, all of it's salt water, so I'll be dead tomorrow. All this water, all this soil's going to be dead.
But no water came in the back of the house?
No, we got lucky there. It stayed below this lip here, which is great. You're lucky for us.
So this whole area where we're walking was underwater?
Oh, yeah.
With the surge?
This was a river, pretty much a river running to the street, which is another river going east.
Okay, now here are your motorcycles. You were concerned about those. This is a good-looking Harley.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I just got this last week, so I was real concerned about it. Luckily, it only got a few inches up on the tires, and I was able to wash it off last night and wash it down. And you
really had nowhere to put it. I mean,
yeah,
where are you going to put it? The ground's not any higher.
No, this is the highest point I had, so I had them up here, and it goes down here from this way down to the street, but I got lucky it didn't get so bad up here.
So this car's fine?
Yes, this car's fine.
But then you've got the Camaro out here.
Camaro took on damage or water in the back floorboards. It's still pretty soaked, so working on that right now, trying to let it air out a little bit. Just letting the sun dry it out, hopefully.
Nice to see the sun today. And your power's on fine?
Yeah, we didn't lose power for just a little bit. That was a benefit, but yeah, we did good there.
Okay, Kevin. Thanks for joining us. Glad you're okay.
Yeah.
Glad your bikes and cars are going to be okay.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
And you'll get that wall rebuilt?
Oh yeah, we'll get somebody here tomorrow and look at it.
Okay.
Yep, no problem.
There you go. More aftermath here from Ada in St. Pete Beach. They had the surge. We've had impacts from wind, 50 to 60 mile an hour wind gusts. And remember, 4, 5, over 6 inches of rain fell with Ada yesterday and last night.
At the Home Depot, Black.
It has been quite the day across the mid-Atlantic. Had a front come through, wave of low pressure, a little bit of the moisture from Ada thrown into the mix as well. And you put all that together and we had a flood set up. There's really no other way to put it. Here's that front, wave of low pressure. The coastal plain has the worst of the moisture at this point. Here's where it's left from Tropical Storm Ada, and you can see that moisture plume is still coming in towards coastal portions of the Carolinas. So when you look at that and you go into North Carolina, eastern North Carolina is still raining pretty good, although the coast is more able to handle this kind of heavy rain as opposed to interior parts of the state. Sandier soils, lower elevation, less flooding. No flood warnings in eastern portions of North Carolina. That said, look at how much rain fell. You can understand why they're having trouble from Charlotte to Raleigh to Wilmington. Now, there is our low, right, from the tropics, heavy rain there. But look at this little finger that comes all the way into South Florida, where there's actually a flood warning north of Miami.
Well, with rising water leading to rescues, it's important to know what to do if floodwater comes to you and sweeps you away. Meteorologist Jim Cantori went to the experts to learn all the right moves.
While working with Jim today, the first thing we taught him is what to do if I accidentally fall in.
The first thing I had to do was float on my back with my feet out of the water. You never want to get your feet caught in the rock. Once I'm comfortable enough there, I would roll over and just swim aggressively towards shore.
Get out, Jim. Dig. That's it.
You have to stay calm because you want all your movements to be purposeful. If you're out there thrashing, splashing about, you're not accomplishing anything.
You're gonna live today, Jim.
One of the scenarios we did with Jim today as well is we put him on a rock. He's stranded on an object. It could have been a car, it could have been a house.
I had to holler and let the rescuer know where I was.
Throw me the rope, throw me the rope.
I was in a position where I wasn't gonna lunge for it.
Great shot.
And then I put the rope over my shoulder.
And then he ferried across, swimming with assistance of the rescuer.
Good job, buddy.
The third scenario we had Jim in today is called a live bait rescue. It's a rescuer on a rope tether.
We know we see rescuers downstream. We have to get down to them.
We went about a quarter of a mile down the river. And it's amazing how fast you get down that river.
All right, guys, I'm about to be rescued here. They're going to be pulling me from the water.
Look at me. I've got you. I've got you. Let me hold on to you. I've got you.
Survivors always need to follow the instructions of the rescuer. Once the rescuer has their hands on them, they have to let us be in charge.
The number one thing that I walked away from today is that you absolutely have to work with this river. I can tell you one thing, after going through this today, I think I could get through a flash flood.
Well, along with flooding rain, we've seen other threats this week, like this one. Now, shortly after a couple parks their car in California Sunday, boom, you see that? Lightning hits. They dashed out of the car after it happened and headed to a friend's apartment. You can see this again. They were picking up the friend to head out to breakfast. Fortunately, They had no serious injuries. However, they did say their ears were ringing a lot after the lightning hit. And you saw more than lightning in Oregon. You got to check this out. Over the sky in this neighborhood in St. Helens on Tuesday. Do you see that? You're going to see what appears to be funnels and potentially a tornado there above the house in the distance. Minor damage reported as a confirmed EF0 tornado struck here earlier this week. And just look at what winds did in Washington State. A mobile home flipped off a truck that was transporting the mobile home along Interstate 82. Officials believe winds gusted through Badger Canyon definitely played a role in the incident. It took several hours to clear the highway and reopen it fully to traffic. Mark?
Gosh, so crazy when the winds can knock over those, that was a house, but high-profile vehicles as well, just how strong they get. The West certainly struggling with wild winds, but not just the West. We've had other areas, including the Midwest, with some big storms as of late. Look at what happened in Wisconsin on Tuesday. That is a windy event. Goodness gracious, the rain's going sideways. You can barely tell what the camera's looking at here, right? That made it very tough to see across portions of the state. Storms dumping very heavy rain here. Along with the wind, you had lightning flashing there. Also, would not want to be caught unaware. Would not want to be caught outside during something like that blasting through. That was with a front that also approached Chicago. Look at this. The waves, the sheets of rain blowing down the streets of Chicago. There were sirens sounded at the time. You were under a tornado watch through the afternoon and evening hours of Tuesday, and those winds knocked out power to more than 10,000 customers in the Chicagoland metro area. We had funnels in Missouri on Tuesday. Look at that, getting up above, and if you look out in the distance, several little appendages. I don't know if I'd call any of those funnels, but there were definitely some lowering, right? Some ominous lowering from the clouds there. No, I wouldn't want to see that, that's for sure. This time of year is kind of the second season of severe weather. It's not the same as spring, but it's a little rebound from where we are in September. October and November are slightly more active months. And if you're going to have severe weather, it is the Dixie Alley, right? The southeast states that wind up seeing that chance of kind of an enhancement. You can see that here with the actual number of November tornadoes that we've seen over time. Dixie Alley really sticks out as the active spots. It's not Nebraska. It's not Kansas. So far this year, we've been reasonably lucky. Only one day with tornado reports. That was the 10th.
Where can a healthier heart...
All right, we'll call this a new video the start of our Weather of the Day tour. Trucks carting away load after load of snow in Hibbing, Minnesota. Snow slamming the state, causing a multi-vehicle pileup along Interstate 94 north and west of the Twin Cities. So from the snow, you get an even bigger weather story in this new video. Check this out, flooding in Charlotte, North Carolina, this in town. In fact, at one point, more than 250 roads closed in the state due to rising water, and in Charlotte, multiple high water rescues were reported. And this new video shows you some of the damage that has been done. Roads that were literally washed away. This in Morganton, North Carolina. It's along Interstate 40 there, just east of Asheville, kind of right between Hickory and there in Marion. So sinkholes, collapsing ground, and the road kind of crumbling below it, all because of the heavy rainfall. So let's show you how much rain we've seen, who's in line for the potential here, more flash flooding. This is it changing by the minute, improving conditions here, thankfully, across the Piedmont and a lot of eastern North Carolina. The rain intensities are really coming down. So our risk for flash flooding, I would say overall going down. Still likely, though, across Fayetteville, Raleigh, and Greenville. That's where we've seen yellows, reds, and oranges, and those correlate to 3 to 5, even 5 to 8 plus inches of rainfall just in the last 24 hours. A lot of this falling today alone since this morning. So wet, soggy pattern. Thankfully, we got that back edge clearing. Wow, have we gotten rid of a lot of those flash flood warnings. Still watching the water recede. That's why we still are in that flash flood warning there in Charlotte and also around Hickory, where we still had that flash flood emergency. All right, there we go. Heavy, steady rains. The worst of the weather now offshore. Still got to watch, though, areas around Wilmington, out towards Riceville Beach and parts of the Outer Banks for the potential there of more ponding. So there's where we go from here. Still going to have some lingering showers off the coast of Charleston and Myrtle Beach. Improving weather, though, overnight tonight and then clearing out from there. Staying cloudy, but overall we're going to clear this whole system and what's ever left of Eta out of here as it pulls up and east of the United States. Farther south, we are watching that one issue there in South Florida. That's a trailing squall line here of Eta, Mark, and this is where we are watching the risk for flash flooding warning now for Broward and Miami-Dade until 8:45 p.m. local time.
And they had so much rain come through with the first pass, and now the grounds are saturated. There are still communities with water on the ground. Let's talk about what else is going on across the tropics. You know, brush up on your Greek alphabet because we're still kind of crossing them off one by one. Tropical storm Theta, all the way in the eastern Atlantic, 65-mile-per-hour tropical storm set to meet its demise over the next couple of days, going east and then not, then going north, maybe bringing some squally weather towards, say, Porto. By the time we get into early next week, we won't have wind as a factor by that point, but some of that tropical moisture is still with us. So let's come back closer to home. This is an Invest area, Invest 98L. Pretty certain that this will be Iota before too much longer. It says 90% chance. That's a 5-day probability. In the next 2 days, it's 80%. And you could make the argument that it might be 1 day at this point. We're getting pretty close. Persistent shower and thunderstorm activity near this swirl. We'll see what happens overnight tonight. I think that'll be pretty telling. Favorable time of day to get these big blow-up with thunderstorms across the tropics. So if that happens a little bit closer to our low-level swirl, which is actually back here, no, we're losing some of the light there, but the longer loop shows you that the best shower activity has been on the north side of that circulation, not as much south and east. Maybe the National Hurricane Center waiting for a little bit more organization to that thunderstorm action near that center. But the swirl is there, and the broad circulation has been bringing on-again, off-again showers and storms across Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands, and that's why we've got a flash flood watch that is still in place through the rest of the day today. This area will be headed into dry air, but should be able to fend it off because there's no shear nearby. So once it gets organized, it should develop pretty quickly, and that is bad news across Central America. The same area that just got run through with Eta and all the flooding rains and the debris flows and the mudslides and the loss of life. Look at the forecast here. The European model has widespread 5 to 8, if not 8 to 12 inches of rain. The latest run of the GFS, the U.S. GFS model, really problematic. Honduras, Guatemala, Belize, maybe 1 foot to 3 feet of rain, Chris, and that is a high terrain environment. So lots of low-lying flooding as well.
Yeah, that's something we're going to be watching there for sure, Mark. Thanks for that update. Meanwhile, new video into us here from Augusta, Georgia. This is the Masters, and you pretty simply can see why they had to delay the opening of the actual tournament that started today. Heavy rain delayed much of the morning, but the play resumed this afternoon, and we've got actually a really nice forecast here. Remember, typically this is held in April, but because of the pandemic, they postponed it to November. And wow, we're in shape for an incredible forecast. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, cooling weather, sunny skies, and highs near 70.